bug guys come around, which necessary because we live in Texas. Um, so Taylin was like all excited because someone was finally awake with her that early in the morning,
Yeah.
other than Vinny, who wakes up to go to work. So he wakes up and like leaves, and then she's just kind of like waiting there. And so we had like a cute little breakfast together. I made little
Aw.
pancakes. She made some eggs. Yeah, it was fun. It was nice. I will not be up at 7:30 a.m. tomorrow, so I don't know that it'll happen again, but it was nice while it lasted.
Yeah. Well, that's like that might just like bring you back into it though. Like maybe
My
it'll like
my
kind of trigger and get you like to wake up a little bit earlier because I know you've been working on that.
my issue tends to be like if I don't have a reason to wake up, then I'm not going to do it. I
Yeah.
can set the alarm for as early or as like mid-morning as I want to, but if there's not a reason for me to get out of bed, it's not happening.
We'll just start scheduling our recordings at 9
Oh
a.m.
god. I won't even know my own name.
Yeah, we'll just be like, hi. Like
Yeah, like
it's like with our
welcome
coffee,
to welcome to In
bags
Bed
like
with Books. My name is Alf. Like
we're we're still in bed.
yeah.
We're like have
Emphasis on the bed.
we have bags under our eyes. We're like,
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why we record late at night
Yeah. The
when we're
later the
actually
better.
alive.
Well, and it's for me it's later because like I actually like I do wake up in the morning time.
Yeah.
And so for me it's good because then I'm like up late and I get like slap happy.
Yeah.
Like and I'm just like I can't like handle myself.
And then I just become like a relatively normal person
Yeah.
as opposed to my normal
You're like
gremlin
you're like
self.
at your peak of like
Yeah,
the day.
exactly, exactly. Uh so yeah, so that was my day. What about you?
My day, I went to work and had to set up this whole phone system. It was dumb, but not very interesting. I got a raise. I got another nut a raise.
I
And
will never do that again, I promise.
what did you do? I wasn't watching.
No, I told you I wouldn't do it. You can watch it in the recording.
No. Um, but it's so cute because so Milo and I work. Our Friday is the same day, so like
Hmm.
he's at work right now, and he gets off at like 8 or 9, and
Okay.
I today's my Friday because I have like the next 3 days off, and he has like the next 3 days off. So we're like date night, and then like it's like 9 o'clock when he gets home, and I'm like, oh my god, like I had to like go be at work at 9 this morning, so but
Yeah. You're
it's
like date
yeah.
in the kitchen.
Yeah. I was like
I
video
hear the
game
chef is
day.
great.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, video game day. So he's like, maybe we'll, because I'm like kind of feeling under the weather. He was like, maybe
Hmm.
we'll just like have a video game like date or something. And I'm like, yeah. But last week we went on this drive. We went to Bellevue, which is just on the other side of Lake Washington. And
Hmm.
he found like this park where you can like see the city, the Seattle city.
Yeah.
Um, well, when we got there, we couldn't see the city, but it was really cool.
Oh.
You could see like the lights because it was like dark out. Like you can see like the top of the really tall building just barely through the trees, but it was still really cool and pretty and like, so that was kind of nice. He's been
I
kind of
feel like we went to that hill
spoiling
in
me.
Hampstead at some point because we went to that hill multiple times. So one of the times we went, it was just like foggy.
Yeah.
I think it was like that time that we got caught in the rain and we
Oh.
had to go to Calendar.
Oh. Oh.
Mhm. But like we like got up there and nothing. Like you're supposed to be able to see like most of London from that point, and it was just
Oh,
like
yeah, Parliament View
yes, Parliament.
Point. Yep.
And we got up there and it was just nothing.
Oh my gosh.
But it's
Yeah.
funny that you mentioned video games. I was just thinking about this. So I have let my PS2 sit untouched for probably close to like 10 years. But recently, Vinny and I have been talking about video games and stuff, and I was like, I've got a PS2 if my mom if my mommy sent it to me.
Yeah.
Because it's still in like my pile of things that I kind of leave there until I eventually like settle down somewhere, like at my parents' house.
Yeah.
So my PS2 is on the way now. She officially sent it today. And so I'm gonna
Nice.
get back to like my Star
Playing
Wars racing
Crash
games
Bandicoot.
and yeah, and like kick Vinny's ass. No, he's gonna totally whip my ass because he plays video games all the time.
What Star Wars game is it? You
It's
said
like
Star
some
Wars?
Star Wars racing
Oh.
game, but it's from the prequels because I got it around the time that the prequels came out.
Yeah.
And I just remember the absolutely disgusting characters because there's something about the Star Wars like background aliens in the original trilogy because they're practical effects, they're kind of cool looking.
Yeah.
It was Jim Henson, right? So it was all like cool puppets and stuff. And then when you watch the CGI rendition of his characters, absolutely disgusting. And they use those in this like game. It's so bad. I love it.
Yeah.
I love every second of it. I used to be really good at this game, and it's gonna totally blow my ego when I lose.
No. Your muscle memory will kick in and you'll kick
I hope
Vinny's
so.
ass.
I hope so.
I believe in you.
My ego depends on it.
Me
So
believing you or winning.
winning. A little bit of
Yeah.
both, but
Yeah.
mostly winning.
Yeah, I don't play a lot of video games, but the video games that I do play, I get obsessive with.
Yeah.
Like I played Skyrim through a few times, lots of times I should say. Dragon Age is really fun because there's romance in it. And then oh no. Can you hear me? You're frozen. All right, I'm going to end the call. Okay, after a minor technical difficulty in
Yeah.
which all of Seattle's
Mercury, you guys, just
I loved your message. I was like, Mercury can go fuck herself. And you were like, she is.
yeah,
Like,
she's very much enjoying herself.
clearly.
Yeah.
But this
Okay.
is season 2.
Yeah. I know. We've
We're
already
so excited.
we recorded 13. This is our 13th episode.
Yeah. Yeah. Episode
Like
13.
that's insane to think about.
And counting.
Uh-huh.
It feels good. It feels good to like be finally like back. I mean, we're like we know
We
what's-
worked the
we
entire
know
break.
yeah. We made a website. We have been writing blogs and
Mhm.
reviews and reading smut. And
Yeah.
now we're like starting to get into our reads for the podcast.
Mhm.
And we're like gearing up to like do it.
To chug along.
I have no idea.
Was that like a train?
Yeah.
You're just chugging along
It
now.
sucks because I don't know what I look like because I just see you.
Oh yeah.
And there's just a little bitty me at the top.
It
of
was
the
great.
screen.
I'm gonna be honest. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Good. Someone has to appreciate me.
So on the books for today is welcome
Yes.
back to In Bed with Books.
Yes.
We are your hosts, Melissa.
And Bethany.
And today we are going to be I don't know that we've really come up with like a good name for what we're doing today,
Yeah.
but we're kind of selling books to each other. So we've got a
Yes.
secret list of 3 books
Yes.
each. And our goal is to try to convince the other person to maybe possibly read it. Who knows if we're going to actually read the books, but
Yes.
we need to make them sound appealing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like it was really fun. Like I kind of like came up with a few more than 3 just to kind of give myself like the freedom of like, I don't know, like they're so good. All of them are so good. And it was kind of fun, like going back in time and like being like, oh,
Yes.
like one of these series, like I read when I was in 8th grade and I just remember it and I love it, you know, like that was a long time ago. So yeah, no, I'm excited. Who's brave enough to go first? Yeah. You're pointing to yourself, right?
No, no, no. That's nose goes. That means you go.
Okay. I'll start. I did so this is the one that I read when I was in 8th grade. And I judge a book by its cover. Sorry, I do.
Naturally, yeah.
Sorry, not sorry, I do.
Yeah.
Um I want to feel like enchanted when I'm holding it and reading it. And we were at sea at this little beach town with my friend in 8th grade, and we went into this bookstore, and I spent like a little too long in there, and I just saw this book and I was like, ooh, this looks like really good, and I just like bought it. It's like $8. And I read it. It was really, really good. It was kind of like I wasn't like a big reader, honestly, until Lord of the Rings movies came out, and then like I was converted. And so I was looking for like something kind of fantastical like that. Again, which is like that's a tall order coming from Lord of the Rings, but this was like for an 8th grader. It was like YA. And it's called the Old Kingdom series, which I didn't know, but the first book is called Sabriel. Oh my God. Sorry, I thought you froze because it said
you did. You did freeze. I lost you for about 15 seconds.
Okay. Do we want to keep going and trying? What do you think? We'll try another. No. Yeah.
I say let's keep the intros.
Yeah.
Let's keep the intros as we've kept them. Then we don't have to worry about doing that tomorrow.
Yeah, and we've already prefaced that we've had technical difficulties. So
yeah. So like start with this one tomorrow. Like we're so close to the beginning that like if we keep going, we're gonna keep going, and then we're just gonna end up hating it and recording it all again.
Yeah.
I think it'll be easier if we stick with the intro and then just cut it with you starting with yours.
Okay.
I mean it sucks, but
it's fine though.
If you're having issues tonight, then we're probably just gonna have them the whole time.
Yeah, and it's gonna be no, I agree. I mean, we already have like a chunk of it. We have it set.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll have a completely new background.
Who's to say?
I'll finally get my whole room and desk set up, and it'll be like, whoa, who is this? And
then you just be like, after some technical difficulties, whole new space.
Bethany did a house redo.
Yeah. That in her stress-induced blackout.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. You're talking about the Sabriel, the Kit Davenport? Is that Kit? No, it's just Sabriel.
No. It's Sabriel by Garth Nix.
Garth Nix, that's what it is. Okay. I'm writing your 3 because I like to take notes when we record.
Do you want my other 2?
No, I still want to be surprised.
Okay.
So I would say just start with that one because I already know it.
Yeah.
Tomorrow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what time tomorrow works for you then? Or I guess if tomorrow doesn't work, what we could do is we could record this one on Saturday and then Saturday's on Sunday. It's up to you.
Yeah. I like that idea.
Okay, that works. That'll give us an extra day to read the book.
Yes.
And then also you'll get a couple of days with Milo. Just get drunk, get baked.
Yeah.
Have high sex.
Okay. Edible sex. Wait, that sounds gross. like a weed edible.
Somebody's into it. Somebody is definitely into it. Okay. Where am I going? Here we go.
I'm out wrong.
Okay, so then this is Friday and that's Saturday. And that works because this one, I don't anticipate this is going to be a long recording.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
And if it is, it's not going to feel like it.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's going to be like a lot of like changing.
Yeah.
This will be an easy one to start the timestamps with
Yeah.
because we can do like
Yep. Each book. Okay.
Bethany's.
I could also, if I'm feeling extra festive, I could like put up like the covers of the books, like
Yeah.
next to our face when we are introducing them.
Yes. When we
Um,
say the name, because I liked how you were leading into it without saying the name of the book first.
okay.
You kind of set the scene and
Yeah.
then
Cause
you were
I
like,
didn't want,
bam,
cause I know I've mentioned it before, but
that's fair.
I wanted to kind
Yeah.
of set up like my experience first and then like drop it.
I think that's a good
Um,
idea.
cool.
And
And
then so then
then,
when we actually drop the name, we'll put the
yes,
cover up. Okay, perfect.
yes. Um, is this, did we have a meeting for this week? I mean, we have nothing better going on.
Today was technically the meeting. Do you want to stop the recording?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was
I
also
don't
worried that it wasn't going to say. After a long interlude of technical difficulties, we're back. I now have wet hair because it is a completely different day and I
Yep.
showered a couple hours ago. So,
And I have completely different clothes
yes.
because again, it's a completely different day and
Yeah.
I like to change my clothes between days.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
Thanks, yeah. I started doing it recently,
Yeah. Just recently.
just very recently.
So, like I was saying, Sabriel is the book
Mhm.
that the first YA series that I really fell in love with. And it has, so the preface is she's this girl, and I honestly don't really remember because I was in 8th grade, but I remember how I felt when I read it, which was, it was just really cool that, so the world is like, the magic is necromancy.
Mhm.
So she has this, I think she inherits, I can't quite remember, but she like gets hold of this bandolier of bells, and like the biggest bell is like calls like the worst of the dead, and then like
Oh,
the
okay.
smaller bells like do like more, I can't quite remember exactly like the whole like logistics, but I just remember it just being like the lighter the bell. And so like throughout the book she like kind of gets to a point where she has to like, save the world and like has to
Yeah.
like ring like lower bells and stuff. But there's like sidekicks. Like she has this Madagot, which I didn't know what a Madagot was until we read
Nice.
Serpent and Dove. And I was like,
Yes.
that's what a Madagot is, which makes sense for necromancy because it's like
Yeah.
an old soul or whatever.
Yeah.
And I forget his name, but he was hilarious. Like he was just this cat.
So he actually spoke though.
Yeah, he spoke.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's nice. That's
Yeah.
fun.
So he like was like kind of the comic relief or whatever. And then there's this part where she comes across this stone statue, and at one, maybe she rings a bell. I don't remember. Touches it. I'm not sure. But then he like comes alive.
Ooh.
Yeah. And then his name's Touchstone, and like they fall in love.
Okay. I'm side-eyeing, but also I love that.
Yeah. Yeah. Like like there's this scene where they're in this tumbling building and she's
Mhm.
like weak or something, I don't know. And he's like carrying her and he's just like she I just remember that's like the scene I remember the most because like she was like paying attention to him like sweating and like the veins coming out of his neck and he's just running for a long time like down these stairs with her anyways. But there's two so yeah, there's like that's kind of the gist of what I remember, but I just remember it just being like really really fun like world and just like a really interesting concept because like I'd never really read a lot of fantasy. And necromancy was like kind of this cool like dark thing. But there's two other books. The second one is called Lyrael, which is her daughter, their daughter, I should say. Uh-oh. Did I give something away?
Oh,
Um,
it's like what, a 20-year-old book, I'm sure. We can probably give you a spoilers pass on that.
yeah. Okay. And then the third one is called Abhorsen, which Abhorsen is kind of the Abhorsen is the like line of necromancers.
Oh,
So that's
nice.
like Sabriel's like her name, Lyriel's her name, and then Abhorsen is like the Abhorsen, or whatever. So yeah,
I like
it
books
was
that
good.
do that though. This isn't a series that or like a book that I'm bringing up here, so I don't mind bringing this up, but like uh Amelia Atwater Rhodes has a series, and I'm pretty sure I've mentioned it on here before, where they're like shapeshifters, and I can't remember what the series is called because it was one that I read when I was in like eighth grade.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the first book is about one woman, and then the next one is about her daughter.
Yeah.
And then so I like books that do that because then you
Yeah.
still get the previous character, but you get like a really fresh new story.
Yeah. Like it's a different person, but the same, like, kind of situation, like the same legacy.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I enjoy that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's fun. All right. Your turn.
Okay. So my first one is the Hollows series by
Okay.
Kim Harrison. I know for a fact that I've mentioned this one before, and I probably about 3 or 4 years ago got Taylin in on it. I pull up the page because there are like 15 books in this series.
Mm.
It's been around since, let's see, let me look at the first one.
I feel like you have talked about it before.
Yeah, 100%. It was voted like best science fiction novel, best fantasy in 2004.
Wow.
So, I mean, like, this is an old series.
Yeah.
So, basically, it surrounds Rachel Morgan, and the world itself is this kind of like deviant timeline. It all happens like in present day, so in like 2004. And so Kim Harrison kind of has never really clarified what the time period is. So there's probably about like 5 or 6 years minimum between book 13, which was supposed to be the end, and then the revamp of the series. The revamp of the series is definitely caught up to like modern times, even though like no time has passed in the books.
Right.
So it is kind of, it's just like vaguely present day. So in like the 60s, what is distinctly the 60s, they had the turn, and that was when some kind of virus was affecting tomato plants and killing off like humans, killing off people.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't know that like there was witches and elves and pixies and vampires and werewolves. They were just kind of like hiding in plain sight, but none of them were dying from the virus or whatever it was. And so suddenly everybody had to come out and be like, so the reason we're not dying is because we're not human. Fun fact. And then, so this is like 40 years later. Humanity is still adjusting to living side by side with magical beings. So Rachel, the main character, is a witch. She's in her like early to mid 20s at the very beginning of the series, which was fun to read. I literally started this series in like early high school. I should not have been reading these books this young. There was like very explicit sex scenes in these books. And so I was like reading it in my bedroom, like trying to pretend that I'm not reading sex. My mom would ask about the book.
She comes in and she's like, "What are you reading?"
Yeah, because they look like little like they're oh, I wish I had one on me. They are the kind of like mini size, like they'll fit right in your purse because
Yeah,
they're the
the
same
pocket.
shape as like
Mm-hmm.
the mom romance
Yeah,
books where there's like
I
20
love
books in a
those.
series.
They're
Same.
they're
Same.
they're like pocket. They're actually called pocket books.
Yes.
And I, quick side note, I learned in my class that they started making books bigger because they were like this, like they are now, because
Mhm.
they were like bookstores did that to as like so that you could give them as gifts. But like
Oh,
pocket books were supposed to be so that you could take them anywhere. Like you could like read
yeah.
massive books like anywhere instead of
Yeah.
like holding, yeah. And I miss those. And so that's why I like go to thrift stores and I find those because I
Well,
like don't want
massive
a
selling
massive
point.
book.
Massive selling point. This whole series is
Hmm.
those little, like the little minis.
Nice.
And so I think my mom would see these and like her brain would go, that looks like one of my books. Even though it's she's not into fantasy, I should say. So I was never able to convince her to read one of them, which is probably better when I was in high school and trying to hide the fact that there was sex in these books. Um, so Rachel is essentially like a cop in the way that they have them. So there's like the human version of the police force and the FBI. I think they're called actually the FIB because it's like a
Mm,
variant timeline basically.
sure.
And so everything is slightly off. And then you've got the magic side of like the FBI equivalent, and that's the IS, Interland Security, because their magical beings are called Interlanders. Now that I'll just here's all of the folklore about it.
Yeah.
So the very first book is like she's in her early 20s. She's always wanted to do this, but the institution is really getting her down. And so she decides to become a private eye.
Mm,
And it's amazing because she's smart, she knows how to kick ass. She dresses in like early 2000s kind of like slutty goth stuff.
yeah.
She's always like when she's about to go on a run, she's like I got to put on my leather pants. Or if she's already out and she like gets caught and she's like kidnapped or something, she's like damn, why am I just wearing jeans? Like why can't I ever look good when I get kidnapped?
Yeah.
Um so there's her, and then she's got her two sidekicks, her two like consistent sidekicks, which is Ivy, a vampire who comes from a very long line of very powerful vampires. But
Mm-hmm.
she hates the fact that one day she's going to die and lose her soul. And so she's
Mm,
very self deprecating, which is very fun to read.
yeah.
You only ever get Rachel's point of view, but she's very, very empathetic. She's a very, very
Yeah.
passionate person, compassionate person. And so seeing like Ivy's plight through Rachel is
Mm-hmm.
amazing to watch unfold through the series. And then their third partner is a pixie named Jenks. He is absolutely amazing. He's only supposed to be like 4 inches tall, but he's got more fight in like all 4 inches of him than either Rachel or Ivy have in themselves at any given moment. He lives in like their backyard with his family, which is his wife, and then his like 30 kids. Because they're still technically like bugs.
That's so
So they,
cute.
yes, they have like a
That's so
very short
fucking adorable.
lifespan. And then you just she's like you go outside and all of his kids scatter. It's like a cloud. Because they also have like pixie dust. And so it's just this cloud of like
Yeah.
pixie dust and like sparkling, just kind of like
Aw.
and also they live in an old church.
Oh, that's
Yes.
really cute.
So they live like one of those big ones with like brick outside, just like very, very well fortified, which is
Mm-hmm.
great too because they're always fighting things that can't step on consecrated ground. And so they live on consecrated ground.
Wow. Like a lot
Yeah,
of, I feel like a lot of thought went into this.
right? Yes, it's so good. Um, so there you get that balance because it's urban fantasy, like I said, present day. So you get the
Mm-hmm.
balance of like fun, magical fantasy stuff, but also
Like,
sometimes she's fighting like this mix of like magic and medical unethical shit.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes she's
Yeah.
fighting technical things, and it's really, really fun to watch. Well, to read. So again, I've been reading these since like beginning of high school. Um, her latest one just came out. I think it was like end of last year or very beginning of this year, and I just read that one. It does not ever let you down. You see a
Nice.
very, very strong character development through all 15 books. It blew my mind actually because I did write a little mini review for our like on like
Mm-hmm.
Instagram about it. Is that even after 15 books, I'm still invested
Yeah.
in what's happening because your 20s are a very formative time. And I think Harrison like really, really gripped that with Rachel's character because throughout the series, there's this kind of like breaking down of what they believe magic is and what they believe it comes from and how to do it most powerfully and how to do it most ethically. So the book also like normal kind of magic things has like dark and light magic, like white and black magic. But pretty early on, Rachel realizes that the rules around it are actually bullshit.
Yeah.
And so she goes from just working with like green magic, where she's like every few weeks she has to painstakingly do everything. She has to harvest all of the plants, spend 4 hours one night making all of the potions, sealing them in the right things, making sure she has a poke stick so she can poke her finger to make sure she can actually activate the potions at the right time, to like some pretty hardcore magic, like some pretty strong shit near the end. It's so empowering.
Yeah.
Yes. Rachel
I
is
really
like
want
this
to read it.
short, it's so
You're
good.
selling it really well. So,
Yes, yes. She's just this like short, skinny. She describes her body as like this skinny 12-year-old boy sometimes with like
yeah,
long, unruly, curly red hair. It's so good.
that's cute.
So I highly recommend. I'm trying to convert more people to the church of
Yeah.
Rachel Morgan.
Of Hollows.
Yes.
It's called Hollows.
Yes, the
Okay.
Hollows.
I remember you've talked about it a lot, mentioned that a lot. So,
Yes. The first book in the series is called Dead Witch Walking. So,
yeah.
yep.
Well, how do I top that?
Good luck.
We were just going to do 3 or just,
Yeah, we can just feel it out. I mean, we both got like lists. Let's
yeah.
just start at 3 and then see what we're at time wise.
Okay. So I read a Ursula K. Le Guin book in school, which is a good book, and we're going to read it in the for the podcast, hopefully next season.
Yes.
But I've read a couple of her books. She's one of the authors I've read probably more of than others. Like, some authors you try them out and then you move on.
Yeah.
This one I was like, I want to see what else she has.
Mm-hmm.
So I've read 3 of her books. But the other one is called The Left Hand of Darkness. And I've like given some of like one of her books to like a friend who I know is a really big reader. And she was like, I just couldn't, like, it's just like really, it's like too complicated or whatever. I mean, and it's because it's like sci-fi and she's literally building planets. Like, so you have all of these terms. So I remember reading this book, like going into it, like writing notes in the margins of like, okay, this is what this is, and this is who this is. And so there's a little bit of that going into her books, but it's so worth it because so with this is, like I said, I think it's the Pisces in me. I just have a really terrible memory, and this is why I reread and rewatch things because
Yeah.
I miss things. But
that's funny because we always joke because like I remember too many details, and that's typically why I can't go back and reread books. There
it's just
has
like
to
too
be like,
overwhelming. Yeah.
but yeah, it's like I know sometimes I
Yeah.
even know what line is coming next. So there has to be like a good chunk of time between the initial
Right.
read and the reread.
Right.
So
Yeah. So I remember reading this in, I believe it was 2016, and it's essentially this guy. I'm trying to remember. Because like I said, I feel things before I know what they are. Like I was thinking about this yesterday, how like I have to remember the feeling and then I backtrack
yeah.
and explain it. So I work backwards. But essentially the world is this guy goes to this planet where the species doesn't have genders. So,
Oh.
and Le Guin does a lot of this, like gender stuff. So it's like they don't have genders, but they reach a state of kettering, which will make them male or female
Okay.
when they need to like mate. But their like person is not male or female. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So it's really
Imagine
cool.
like you just get so horny one day that you just like grow a vagina.
Yeah. Or a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it could change. Yeah.
So
And
so like one day you could have a vagina and then like a few months later you could just like have a penis.
yeah.
Oh wow. That's
Um,
interesting.
like I said, it's been a long time. I don't know how long it lasts, but
Yeah.
I remember so the guy that came over and I think he was like trying to like get help for his planet or something. Like the plot is just completely lost on me.
But like the emotions stood enough that you're like, I
Seriously,
need to make Melissa
because
read this.
yes, because there is this character who is not so the guy that I don't know whose name is. See, I didn't do any research, but he goes to the planet. He's a human. Goes to this planet and has to do something for like the better of the world or something. And he goes with this guy who is a species of the planet. So he is he, her, I don't know. But I think they just say he as like a general.
Yeah.
But so he has to like lead him like through, and it's this really cool planet. I really liked the aesthetics of it because it was like this very like snowy, barren, like land, kind of like Russia or something almost, or an Antarctica kind of feel. And so he has to lead him through, and he kind of like falls in love with a human. And it's like this really, it was like the first book I really cried to.
Oh,
because it was
wow.
like, it just had like a lot of like heart to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, like I said, you don't get, that's all you get because I can't really remember the details. But I just remember there was like a lot of heartbreak and like, yeah. What did I write down? Oh, it was like very high stakes. Like it was just like a very
Do you
propelling
happen to
story.
remember what the planet was dying from?
I don't think the planet was dying. I think the human main character was like trying to get something to help his planet, or like they were trying to like work together and like
Okay.
get like scientific something like that, like
Okay.
help. I don't know. So yeah, I feel like I'm really losing the game here.
I mean, so far I would definitely like I would read Sabriel.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm sorry, I should
good.
have said that the first like when we first did that. I would definitely read Sabriel. And like I'm curious enough about Le Guin to read that book as well.
Yeah, it's one of her it's one of her more popular ones, and that's
I feel
why
like
I grabbed it.
it's like book reader sacrilege to say this, but like I've never read Le Guin. But I also didn't read a lot of sci-fi growing up. I was pretty strictly like a fantasy bitch.
Yeah, no, and I only read The Dispossessed for class, and then I was
Yeah.
like, holy shit. Like, and then I just was it was the first time I was like actually interested in sci-fi because of that
Yeah.
book. Like I'd always been like kind of a fantasy person, but like
Sci-fi ways, the only stuff I've really read has been like gothic sci-fi and
mhm.
then Vonnegut. So, and I mean,
Yeah,
I love
same.
Vonnegut.
Like I haven't read a lot of like sci-fi. And yeah, like Vonnegut, like next season, man. Next
I
season.
know, I'm excited. So
Yeah.
like it's not like I'm not interested. I think it's just
Mhm.
like you learn the visual language of books and like it grabs you. And so I think just like at a very young age, I learned to gravitate visually towards like fantasy books.
Mhm.
And even on accident, that's just what I would run into. So
And I would always like as I just remember as a kid, I just really wanted to like I wasn't a very good reader as a kid. I was always
mhm.
in like the special reading groups and stuff, and I just like this is probably why. Like cuz I remember Sabriel like not even knowing what's going on, and it was
Oh
like
wow.
for me, like just
Yeah.
half of the time like not really knowing what's going on because like
Mhm.
my what is it called? You know, the ability to like understand what's going on, readability. I don't know.
Yeah. I don't know what it's called, but like the
There's a
ability to like
word
read the words and
and
then
like
like make
no,
sense of them.
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. Um,
Oh. Oh, I had it for a second. Reading comprehension.
yes, my reading comprehension was probably not very good. Now, Lord of the Rings, the movies came out, and then I was like, fuck, really want to read these. And I read them, but I knew what was going to happen. So
There.
it helps. And it's Tolkien. So you're just like
Yeah.
getting descriptions and poetry, like, which I'm
Yes.
there for. Um,
Yes. I do
so,
have to say, complete tangent from our actual conversation because we had done like the little mini episode or like our Film Friday episode on Fellowship.
mhm.
I wanted to bring up Tom Bombadil real quick.
I
I
know.
love him in the
Yes.
books. That being said, I like that they kept him out of the movies
Mm-hmm.
because I really feel like it would have fucked up the pacing.
Wasn't he in The Hobbit?
Was he? No, I don't think it was him in The Hobbit. It's one of the other wizards.
Radagast.
Radagast, yes.
Radagast was cool, not in the movies, but he was super cool
Yes, he
in
was.
Silmarillion. I loved Tom Bombadil and I loved his wife.
Yes.
Wanted to be her.
Yeah.
Loki.
She's just like, she's just existing, and the hobbits are like, she's the most beautiful thing we've ever seen in our lives. We'd
Yeah.
kill ourselves if she asked us. Like,
Like
her beauty knew no bounds.
I love her more than Galadriel.
Same.
And I think part of it is the mystique around her.
Yeah, because you really
Because
only
she
see
doesn't
her for
have a
those
big
like,
part. Yeah.
yep. You see her for those few minutes. She's just this like gorgeous, gorgeous creature. She shows them the sweetest hostess manners, and
Mm-hmm.
then she says bye.
She says, sets them on their way.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was always kind of akin to like the fantasy more
Yeah,
so than
same.
like sci-fi. Because it's just kind of like, are you an LOTR bitch or are you a Star Wars bitch? You
Yep.
know, most bitches are Lord of the Rings bitches, I think, because it's like Star Wars was very like geared towards guys. Not to say that
Marketing
there aren't
wise,
women.
yes.
Yes. Not to say that there aren't women who like it, but all of my boy cousins were all over the Star Wars. And all of us
Star
girls were all
Wars,
over
like
Lord of the Rings.
Star Wars heavily attempted to gender itself as male.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say it succeeded, but I would definitely say that like a lot of guys drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of with sci-fi, there's a lot of this feeling of nerd, like,
Yeah.
you know, the nerd
Because
trope of like
it's
because
made up of it. It's
it's
made up of
made up.
elements like
Yeah.
what we perceive as male with the like the computer sciences and like rockets and all of that kind of like technical shit.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which, yeah. So, whereas Lord of the Rings, like you can just kind of, it's like it's fantastical. And that's
Yeah.
like a little bit more like literary, I would say, in that way.
Yeah.
Like, because even Lord of the Rings you're kind of going down history lane in a
Yeah.
way.
Well,
Like so much of
Tolkien
all of his
draws
races are drawn from like, yeah, from
exactly,
real, like,
exactly. Pretty much every element of the story is drawn from Celtic,
mm-hmm,
uh what like think like the UK and then kind of like Scandinavia a little
mm-hmm.
bit, like all of their histories and
Yeah.
like their myths and folklores. So he's drawing very directly from
Yeah.
this
Like
like lineage.
Rohan is very like Viking, very
Mhm.
Skyrim. Hobbits are very, working class, which I like. That's why I like
That's
Hobbits.
there's very like English countryside,
Mm-hmm.
like it's literally called the
Like
Shire.
farm. Yeah. The
Yep,
farm.
yep.
Yeah. The Shire. Yeah. Don't know where elves come from, but you know.
I think they actually come from myth. Like the dwarves are very directly drawn from Norse myth.
Mm-hmm.
The names of the dwarves actually come
Mm-hmm.
from the Prose Edda. And I know I'm saying that wrong. I've been corrected by somebody who speaks Norwegian on my
Yeah.
pronunciation of that.
But you don't remember.
Well, it's because of the D. I can't get the D right
Yeah.
because the double D we use differently with our tongues. Um, but he draws everything like from these actual sources. So that's
Yeah.
why like it feels more literary, because if you read these older texts, you're getting like this almost precursor on the Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. 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 Exactly. So
But back to our regularly scheduled program.
Yeah.
Okay, so my next book is actually a nonfiction. So I had been gifted this in London, my last Christmas there. I got to spend 2 Christmases in London. um and so it's this memoir by, oh gosh, what's her name? Dolly Alderton. She's about our age. I think she's actually like between you and me age-wise. And so she grew up mostly in and just outside of London. So her family lives just outside of London. And then like the second she went to college in London. I don't remember which college. It's called Everything I Know About Love. So she goes kind of from like, she gives like a little bit of memoir precursor, to high school, learning one way or another about her relationship with her body
Mm.
versus her self-worth versus boys, unfortunately, and how at a very young age she became actually an alcoholic,
Mm.
and then navigating her early 20s in London in the 2010s, I think it would have been, with a drinking problem, a hard time dating, aggressive party scene. Because, like, granted, we didn't go to a lot of parties, but like there was a huge party scene. There is a huge
There
party
is,
scene in
yeah.
London.
It's
I don't,
London, yeah.
like, pandemic wise, maybe not quite as much,
Yeah.
but like the kind of parties where she wakes up on the opposite side of London and doesn't know how she got there,
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of shit. And then progressive, like she gets into her later 30s and, or sorry, into her later 20s, closer to her 30s, and navigating how her friendships with her like lifelong friends are changing and shifting because they're maturing, and she's like, why am I still like this? So she starts going to therapy. But it was really, I don't want to say like relatable, it was, but that feels almost like it's underselling how seen this book makes you
Mm-hmm.
feel sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It's so raw at certain points, and it's not even like she's not recounting aggressively traumatic events. They're very real, kind of quotidian kind of issues, but she talks about like them and with this weight that speaks really to the emotions of those kinds of situations.
Mm-hmm.
So like just the normal event of like waking up with somebody who's a kind of lover, kind of boyfriend, and everything's normal, but the moment she realizes that it's actually fake. um so that's, I really love that. And then kind of the self-indulgent, she's describing parts of London,
Yeah.
and you get to picture it, and you can, like, her therapist has an office in Oxford Circus, which, like, first of all,
Mm.
the amount of money you'd need to be
Mm-hmm.
making to have an office in Oxford Circus.
Yeah.
Cool.
It's a
But then, like,
retail district.
yeah, so apparently it was just like, because they had like some of like, not alleyways, but kind of like half
Mm-hmm.
alleyways. You just walked up one of those, in through a door, up like up an
Yeah,
elevator
it's
or
like
something,
probably up some
up above
fourth
them.
floor or something. Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so then, having been to London, but having been in those places, added this nice kind of second layer, because you
To
can really
relatability.
picture,
Yeah.
yeah, you can really picture the environment she's
Mm-hmm.
in. So she talks about like the different neighborhoods she lived in at different points in her life, or in her 20s. And there was one where like the corner store knew her, the guy knew her so well that when they had a mouse in their kitchen, I think it might have actually been a rat, when they had a rat in their kitchen, they just called him and he walked down, trapped the rat, and then left. Like they all had like locked themselves in their rooms, and he just came into the house and did that. It's like those kinds of just normal life things.
Yeah.
It was almost like a comforting book, even though she's talking about some really sad topics.
Well, there's something really nice about, like you said, that quotidian like feeling
Yes.
of like okay, like you wake up and you walk down the street and like yeah, you have like a rat in your apartment, like your flat, I should say. It's like these things that happen, and these like people that like come in and out, and just like that
Yeah.
feeling that, and like yes, this happens, yes, that like happens everywhere, but there's a certain way that it happens in London,
Yeah.
right? And in every place that's like
She was
very
she
was probably another layer of familiarity, like
Yeah, she really acknowledges like the romanticism of
mm-hmm.
London,
Mm.
which I love, because as she's talking about these things, she does have the opportunity, having written this book and lived there for probably, I think, half her life at this point. she has the opportunity to undersell it,
Yeah.
to make it seem like it's just such this normal thing that people shouldn't be that amazed at London. But she kind of seems continually also amazed
Mm-hmm.
that the city is what it is.
Yeah.
And I love that because there was like nothing more off-putting than talking to somebody while we were there and then being like, oh, it's just London. It's like, no, it's not just London. It's like an international hub. There's
Yeah.
so much life in that city.
Yes.
She really captures that.
Yeah. I remember there were a few moments when were with our group and you'd be like, guys, we're in London.
Yeah.
And like everyone, like the other two people were just kind of like, eh. And I was like,
Well,
I
they've been
know.
there.
I know. And I was like, I know we're in London. Like I tell myself that every day. Like, cause it is, it's just like so cool. Like I remember too, like you had said it again when you and I were at Pizza Express, like
Yeah.
over on the Thames, like right across from St. Paul's.
Oh, that was a gorgeous
And it
Pizza
had this
Express too, because like the
beautiful
windows.
view, yeah,
Yes.
of like the river. And you were like, oh my God, can you just believe that we're in London? And I was like,
And that's already like a year into me
I
being there.
no, we were like in our last couple months, or at least I was in my last couple months. But like, I just remember being like, I appreciate that because I'm usually the one that's always like the excitable, like
Hmm.
this, like, what do you call that? Like, sentimental
Yes.
one. And so it's always nice when someone else is sentimental and I'm like given permission to like
I didn't
indulge
ever
in
want to
that.
get to the point where I was underwhelmed with
Yeah.
how beautiful that city can be.
Mm-hmm.
I have every intention of going back at some point,
Absolutely.
potentially like with the goals of some point living there. But like if I can't, then I'm just going to visit as often as I can because I
Mm-hmm.
love London so much.
Me too.
Um, oh shoot, what was I going to say? I can't remember. I got too excited about
We got too
London.
excited.
Yeah.
Anything about your book? Any last?
No, I think that's about it. It was,
Okay.
I think it was just one of those things because I'm not really a nonfiction reader typically when I'm
Mm-hmm.
doing reading for fun. There's been a few books that have definitely stood out to me, and this is one of them. I think it was just read at the right time
Mm-hmm.
because I
Mm-hmm.
read it actually when I came here. So after I moved to Houston, and it was like, I think I've talked about this before, but like I moved to Houston kind of mid pandemic, mid lockdown. So everything was closed, shut down. I mean, Taylor and I know each other,
Mm-hmm.
and like the boys, all four of us have gotten a lot closer, kind of by just force of
Mm-hmm.
being confined for the most part. Um, and so I think it really hit the loneliness that I
Mm-hmm.
was feeling.
Well, and the nostalgia of like a
Yeah.
year ago where, where you were and
Yeah,
stuff. So
exactly.
so you'd read it after you left London.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
I should
it
read
was
it.
good.
Or
It's a
should
very
I?
good book.
Like,
It
I'm
it was
like,
like
I,
it hit them in like a good way, in the kind of way it's
yeah.
like I'm feeling lonely and she is expressing it in a way that makes me feel better.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah. Okay, my turn.
yes.
Okay. Um, I guess I feel like I didn't prepare very well. But
I didn't prepare at all.
no, you didn't. Um, okay. I, I have a couple here and I can't decide. So do we want a classic or a non-classic?
What's the classic?
Madame Bovary.
Do the non-classic.
Okay.
Yeah.
So this one is what lodged me back into reading, like officially. Um, it's not what you think though.
I know. I figured because I think you said you wouldn't do that one. So now
Yeah.
I'm curious.
Yeah, I was like, I don't want to do ACOTAR because I feel like you already know everything about it.
And plus, I mean, we do have plans to read it.
Yeah, we want to read it. And so I'm like saving that. I'm like, there's just so much buzz around it. You don't need me to convince you. This one is, so like I said, I didn't really get into fantasy officially until last year, but this one's
Mhm.
not fantasy. It was a historical fiction called The Locksmith's Daughter by Karen Brooks.
Oh.
And I was literally so bored in the middle of lockdown. I was so bored. I was so done watching shows. Like, and
Yes.
I was like, Nolani, can you take pictures of the books you have? Because I just need something. I need something.
Hmm.
So she took pictures of all her books, and she had this one called The Locksmith's Daughter, and it had, the cover has like, it looked like, it was, like English Renaissance. She had this like bright golden dress or whatever, and she's just walking through the streets of London, and I'm like, London, ding, 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 like, ooh,
Yeah.
and not only that, but like 16th century London, like
Oh,
1500s or whatever.
yeah.
So she, what I loved about this book was that she has this huge transformation, which I think is just like what I live for in books. Like, if you're
Yeah.
not going to give me like character development, I'm like that with shows too. Like, I'm like, I don't care how cool like the plot twist is, like,
Yes.
or the one
Yes.
liners. Like, I need someone to like feel something, like, and I want to feel it with them.
Kurt Vonnegut, totally related, I promise.
Mm-hmm.
Kurt Von
Yep. Turd Vonnegut.
Yep.
Blooper.
Kurt, I think I actually said Turk. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Kurt Vonnegut has his 8 tenets of storytelling, and one of them is basically like put your characters through hell because
Mm-hmm.
people do not care if they don't know what they're capable of.
Mm-hmm. Well, then what weren't you telling me too? Was it V.E. Schwab, the mantra, and that
Yes.
they have to break the
Yes, you have to
mantra?
break
Like,
the
that's
mantra.
so interesting to me. Yes.
Yes.
Cool.
I also
So,
love that
yeah.
conceptualization of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. Um, yeah, so she is the locksmith's daughter. She's this locksmith that lives in London. And of course, this is all east. It's all like actually the city of London, which is like in the east-ish side.
Yeah.
Back when London was much smaller,
Yeah.
which I love. I'm just like looking at maps and stuff, and I'm like,
And
oh,
not like 9 separate zones.
yeah, like
Yeah.
like the city of London, like where the black, yep.
Yep.
Cool. So she has been learning how to do like locks and stuff and like
Like
undo locks.
apprenticing.
Yeah. And so the spy master of the Tower of London is like friends with her dad.
Is the spy
And
master cute?
no.
Oh.
I can't
It's a
remember.
sexy name. It's a sexy name. I got excited. Please
He
continue.
was like I know. He was like a guy, I don't know. He's in need of someone that can like work undercover and stuff. And so somehow she gets in on that. So she becomes a spy. And she has like these assignments, and it was really fun because she'd be like walking, she would have to learn how to like memorize, like she would walk through the market, like, and she would have to memorize like when people like came out to do things and like all
Like
of just these
recon.
different, yeah. She
Yeah.
would have to like learn all of these different things, and it was just like really fun. And she has a best friend who's in the theater, and he is so fun. Like,
Yes.
and then there's this, so he brings this Lord Nathaniel, I can't even say his name, to her house. And he's like, so she's like, I don't know, like very like quiet and stuff, and like always wears black. Like she just is very like closed up. And there's a reason for that because she has like a past. She got like married off. And so she hates like her parents. She got married off and was like abused. Like she like lived on this farm and was like abused sexually, like horrifically.
Oh.
And then she managed to I think she was I can't remember if she was pregnant or if she had the baby. I think she had the baby and like ran off and like it died, and it was just like it was
Yeah.
just like really traumatic. So she comes back and she's just like completely like, just guard
Beat
up.
up.
She's not like alive,
Yeah.
But
Wait, so she comes back to her parents' house?
yeah.
Okay.
And so she's kind of disowned because she like left him and stuff. I think he's
Yeah.
still alive, like her husband or whatever. But she
Damn.
was just like frustrated. But so there was just a lot of like, there's like this moment in the attic where she like has to kind of like gather herself being back in this house, like with her family who like said
Subjected her
this.
to it.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so, but then like Lord Nathaniel comes and like actually sees her, and he's like, I loved it because he's like very like playful and like, like I don't know the word for it, but like just like flirtatious. And
Charming.
yes. And she like kind of bites back a little bit, but like not very much because she's still like so like guarded and stuff. But then her friend, I forget his name, but her friend that's like in theater and stuff is like, I don't know. He's just like so sweet. But there was like a really good example of like, there's this part that was like, so this book had like a lot of character growth, but it also had like really harrowing scenes, like not only of like abuse. So there is like some like sexual abuse. Yeah, there's sexual abuse and there's like some like physical abuse a little bit. And then but then there's this part where the three of them go, or her and her friend that's in the theater, I don't know his name, goes to this, what do they call it? I don't think it's a beheading, but it's like a
Execution?
execution. Yeah. And it's like really
Damn.
crazy. And she just like starts throwing up and just like can't, like, it was just like a really interesting way, because part of you is just kind of like, how did people do that? Like, I
Yeah.
remember reading that in classes in London of just like people who would like have like, would do surgery on people and just
Like
like
in
alive.
Yeah,
Like,
because we didn't have anesthesia until like the late 1800s.
but like they would use surgery as like an example, and they would
Yeah.
literally just like have someone up there and be like, look at his heart, it's so like dead, and he's like still alive. I know.
Like I'm holding his bare heart. It's weird. It's not pumping now. Yeah.
Like pulling out his intestines and he's like still alive and screaming,
Yeah.
like shit like that. And
Well,
you're like,
there's the
how did people like be okay? Like, obviously, like
yeah.
we know, but like being in that. And then now I'm reading this story about someone who you're supposed to relate with. And then also believes in like that. It's like, because the reason why that like worked and like, as like a, what am I trying to say? Like, like public executions and stuff worked so much is because people believed that they were evil and
Yeah.
that your body would manifest it. And so when you showed the body parts and said, see, like, it was just like that kind of thing. And so like, obviously we don't believe that anymore, but like it was just interesting to see that there were like, I believe that there were still people who didn't believe that, like, or that
Yeah.
would just be able to like have an effect on that kind of
Yeah, not
brutality.
everyone enjoyed
Yeah.
those things.
No, yeah.
It does make me think of the Hogarth etching of the last panel in the Rake's Progress, was it? Where he ends up, because it was always criminals who would be in the surgeries. Like
Yes.
a punishment for criminals was to end up in a classroom where it was like a theater style,
Theater.
but like fully round. And in the middle would be a doctor dissecting a criminal.
Yeah.
Do not look up this like panel if you are easily squeamish, because it shows them mid-surgery. Granted,
Yeah.
it's like what's it called?
Well, they would get cadavers from like prisons and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's it? Oh, now it's gonna bother me. Art style where it's just lines.
Etching?
hatching, because I think it's like
Mm.
hatching and then you got cross hatching where they like go
Right.
across each other. Yeah. Technically it's just that, but it's still a pretty dark piece. But yes,
Yeah.
I agree, because when you learn about the way that like public executions were kind of a town event on Sundays, it's very easy to look at the past and look at ancestors and think of them as this very kind of uneducated, discompassionate, dirty, like
Mm-hmm.
immoral kind of conglomerate. Like it
Mm-hmm.
makes it very easy to sell the myth that like
No one was an
knowledge,
individual. Yeah.
well, that like knowledge
Yeah.
is kind of like progressively going up and it's measurable, and that
Mm-hmm.
like human evolution just continually moves in an upward ascension. And like in reality, yes, we have more technology, but we're still probably not that different today, like in embodying as an
Mm-hmm.
individual as our ancestors were.
No, and this was only like 400 or 500 years ago, which isn't that long.
Exactly,
And like,
exactly.
yeah.
So I think the only difference is that the like perception of morality around it has
Mm-hmm.
changed.
Yeah.
So people who we view now as normal, who would find this disgusting, back then were the outliers.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think a lot more people would have found it, a lot more people alive today would find it enjoyable than are likely to admit it.
Well, there's a level of it still happening today, which I won't
Oh
get
yeah,
into. But
100%.
it's not, yeah, it's not like to someone's death necessarily
Mm-hmm.
always, but yeah, it was, and I think a lot of what made me why I think she had the effect that she had was because she had experienced it in one way or another,
Yeah.
you know, um, being someone's, punching bag or whatever. And
Yeah.
so, but yeah, then Lord Nathaniel takes her on his horse back to safety.
Yeah. Of
um,
course he does.
but there is like, there were no lulls. Like it was such a roller coaster ride. She ends up getting captured and put into the tower. So,
Oh.
and then gets rescued from the tower. And then, like, the ending is so sweet because it's like they obviously run away from London because they can't go back. And, like, they have, like, their, union. And he just like literally weeks after she's been like tortured in the tower, um, just like it was just this sweet moment of just him just like accepting her body the way that it was. And it was
Yeah.
just like, oh. And
Because he
then
fell in love with her.
yeah.
It didn't
And
matter what her
so
body was like.
Lord Nathaniel.
I know you can't even say his name without like,
I can't.
oh,
And like
yeah.
Nathaniel. But
Yeah, just
yeah,
like that.
it
Totally
was
normal way to say a man's name.
exactly. But it was good. Like I would probably read it again.
Nice,
And
nice.
it was just cool to see the different scenes as well because you've got like a little bit of the theater side
Mm-hmm.
and like her friend like had like a lover and it was just like because that's like theater like really brought that's where like a lot of like homosexuals would go to like feel
Mm-hmm.
comfortable and so like it was just like really kind of seeing those like little like communities and then also just like the spy work that she did was cool and just like I don't know it was very fun.
I'd probably read it.
Yeah,
I like historical
good.
fiction.
Yeah.
A suggestion related to that, but not my official third suggestion, is The Sin Eater, which is one that I read before I moved out to Houston. So when I was still like, living in Phoenix, very beginning of the pandemic, set during like this a similar time period. But there used to be these figures called sin eaters, and basically what they were doing is like they were charged, because typically they were some sort of criminal, with eating the sins of the dead. And so
Mm.
when somebody would die, certain foods would be associated with certain sins, And at their wake or at their funeral or whatever event this family or person could afford, they'd have a witness, and the sin eater would come in and eat their sins, the symbol of their sins.
Mm.
But then they would absorb them. So
Oh.
the reason it's a punishment is because they're also absorbing the sins of all of these people. So typically, if a person knew that they were dying, the sin eater would come in, and they actually wouldn't be allowed to speak until that they were with the person who was dying and to say, please confess your sins. And you had to be honest, because if you lied or if you omitted anything, then the sin eaters wouldn't absorb anything, like the theory was. So you had to be honest, because if anything in there was a lie, then the sin eating was for naught and you're going to go to hell anyway.
Yeah.
And so the plot ends up being that like a very, very high standing woman in this community, somebody who is second or who is like close to the queen, because it's very loosely Queen Elizabeth,
Right.
Dies. She's confessing her sin, she dies. They go to the next day to the wake, and so you've got like the older sin eater and then the younger one who's the main character. The older sin eater refuses to eat something that was on the casket.
Mm.
And then somebody in the room, I can't remember who it was, is like, you have to eat everything. And she doesn't say anything. She just stops eating and she leaves the one thing on there. And the thing's supposed to mean like, I think like infanticide.
Mm.
And she refuses to eat it. And so they take the older sin eater and they charge her with treason or some shit and kill her. But then the question becomes, who left that out there because it wasn't a confessed sin? Who is trying to accuse this person who's very close to what is supposed to be like a Queen Elizabeth, a figure of infanticide? Because there are already rumors that this pseudo Queen Elizabeth had a child and had killed the child. It's very good. Very good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That is really interesting because it's already like, it's already like super, like there's a lot of ethical shit going on that it's already just like point blank, just like anything goes kind of, anything can happen kind of thing.
Yeah, it was a pretty good book. Okay, but now my actual third is Song of Achilles by Madeline Miller.
So real quick, I did start to read this.
Yes.
And I am a chronic start, don't finish kind of person.
That's why I'm here today.
Yeah.
To spread the good word.
Because I read it and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting. And then it just wasn't, I don't know. I think it was just like a book in the sales zone. That's fair. But yeah, no, go ahead. I've heard really good things about it though.
So as somebody who's read a lot of Greek myth retellings, I might say that this is my favorite, like arguably one of the best Greek retellings of all time. And that's including Homer, who wrote the Iliad and the Odyssey as like a retelling of the oral tradition. So it's all told from Patroclus' point of view, who is like...
What's his name?
Sorry, Patroclus.
Patroclus.
Yeah, he's Achilles. In some versions of the myth, cousin. In some version, just like his squire figure. In some versions, actually a lover, which wouldn't have been uncommon. It was the Greeks. Assuming that these are based off real figures. So telling the story of the Iliad from the point of view of the, like, not the hero, I think was a really, really interesting point of view, because it's supposed to be this big, fantastical, heroic epic, right? You get the hero destined to die, Achilles. You get this very, very just war. In the book, it's even kind of implied that Helen was, it wasn't very hard to convince Helen to leave,
Right.
if you know what I mean. Um, and so kind of seeing this outside of like Agamemnon's propaganda,
Yeah.
it's really, it's a really nice point of view on a very classic story. And because you kind of get the back story, like the background on a lot of different situations. So you'll get Patroclus in their tent on the beach at Troy. And he's talking about these, like he's really passively sometimes talking about these major events that happened in the, like what would have been like 20 pages of description in the Iliad in a very passive way, because he's not worried about the war, he's worried about his love Achilles.
Mm-hmm.
And there's something so human about that, because the Greeks, and I'm not like judging the Greeks for this, because this is kind of the purpose of their stories, that their myths held, is that you deify these figures because they're meant to symbolize something bigger than
Yes.
just your normal man. They're meant to symbolize what you should aspire to physically, mentally, emotionally. It's like Odysseus is a hero not because he's this skilled fighter, but because he's overly intelligent,
Mm-hmm.
because he knows how to think his way out of things. That's what makes him a hero. Theseus is a hero because he overcame great odds. Hercules is a hero because he's smart and strong. Achilles was destined to be this great warrior. And so getting them from Patroclus' point of view, it really humanizes the figures that are in the
Mm-hmm.
story. Um, because okay, so like Odysseus is in the Iliad. So obviously he's in Song of Achilles. Where we would see reading it from like the heroic epic standpoint, an intelligent genius, this tactile, amazing king slash warrior, Patroclus doesn't trust him, which is fair, because if you think about that kind of figure in real life, you don't trust him
Mm-hmm.
because he's too smart for his own good or for anyone's good. And so I like the way that that was like a very realistic expression of somebody who's not that strong and not that smart experiencing the presence of somebody who has the power of a kingship plus real intelligence. Additionally, it does have gods in there because, again, it's Greek myth. And even in like old stories, the gods were a very real presence in their plays and in their epics. And whenever they're in these stories, you've got like Athena who's disguised as an old man or an old woman trying to trick somebody. Or you have like Hermes kind of showing up while you think you're about to die and just kind of saving the day,
Yeah.
saving you at least for 5 minutes long enough to survive and then leaving. But one character that actually plays a really big, one god that plays a really big part in this is Achilles' mom. But she, Miller kind of balances the line between terrifying goddess and just scared mother,
Right.
because his mom obviously doesn't want him to fight in a war that he's destined to die in, even if it means that they'll win. It's something like, I can't remember what the prophecy was specifically, but I'm pretty sure it's something along the lines of like, if he doesn't fight in the war, they're destined to lose, and like Greek Hellas will fall forever kind of thing. But if he does, he'll die. They'll win, but he'll die. And
Right.
she obviously doesn't give a shit about Greece. She doesn't give a shit about Agamemnon's beef. She's just like, I want to save my little boy.
Yeah.
But also, I'm a terrifying sea goddess, and Melissa will never figure out how this man had sex with me. Because I think she's supposed to have like fins.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where it's like, how do mermaids have sex?
Yeah. Well,
How did a human have sex with a sea
in
goddess like this?
in the lighthouse, you'll find out.
Oh, good. Um, but yeah, so I think Miller just does this very good job of modernizing the story without losing the integrity of the story.
Do you feel like for someone who doesn't know anything about Greek
Oh,
would
yeah.
enjoy something like this?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like they would still be
Because
able to
she turned it
capture.
from this war ballad into a love song.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like the age-old dichotomy to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
war and love. But she does it so perfectly.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I think you should finish it and then tell me how it
I should
is. Tell
finish
me how
it.
you like
Yeah.
it.
Well, I took it back to Barnes and Noble.
That's fair.
It,
This
it
is one that
wasn't
I
that
read
I
in
didn't like
London.
it. I just wasn't in the mood for it at the time. I
No,
think
it's
like I
fair.
was just like, oh, I kind of want something else right now.
Yeah.
And I had kind of like, um, just, when you just want to spend money on books.
Yes. Yes. I read it on my phone on the tube. So I just like I got the Kindle
Mm-hmm.
app on my phone and I would
Mm-hmm.
just scroll. I set it to like the continuous scrolling. So that way I
Nice.
wouldn't like beat myself up about page numbers and I just
Yeah.
like went through. I finished it in like a couple days.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't very long.
No. I do have the other one that she wrote, Circe,
Mm-hmm.
here. I need to read that one.
Oh, you haven't
But
read that one yet? Okay.
no, not yet. I didn't get that one until recently. So
Okay. I've heard good things about it. I mean, I've just seen it a lot.
yeah,
So is it
same.
is it newer than Song of Achilles?
I can't
Maybe.
remember. Let me look. Oh, it's under other books. I'll look later.
Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah. So that is my third.
So recap, I really want to read The Hollows.
Yes. Yes. And I think I want to read Left Hand of Darkness.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I won you over then.
Yes, you did. 100%.
We could cuz I have thought about it. I was like, "Oh, which one do I like better, The Dispossessed or The Left Hand of Darkness?" And I think The Dispossessed had more, like you saw more, so I feel like there's just like more themes to explore. There's a lot like more quote, like it's definitely her most popular,
Mhm.
I think. But Left Hand of Darkness is still very good. So
Yeah, I'd be down to toy with whichever one we want to read for next season.
I definitely want to do The Dispossessed with you because
Okay.
it's more
Okay.
political.
That's fair. I'm
Yeah.
down for that.
I
You know
want
how
to
I feel
discuss
about
it with you.
politics. Yeah.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
they're not there, I'll bring them up anyway.
Next season's going to be very political.
Yeah, well, we're doing a lot
Not
of
in a bad
sci-fi next
way.
season.
Not in a bad way. It's going to be it's just going to be talking a bit more about like politics, like just political
Political
in kind of the
elements and
higher
themes. Yeah.
sense, not like in the day-to-day sense kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I just got like a huge whiff of garlic from under the door. I think it must be in the AC because like it turned on. It was just like it hit me in the face.
Oh wait, is that what that humming was? Was the garlic? I heard like
I
this
think
humming,
so.
and
Yeah.
then you were like this whoosh of garlic came through.
Yeah. I feel like I've been accosted.
Yeah, accosted.
Okay, so I think that's pretty solid.
Yeah,
I think three was good.
3 was good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then join us next week where we'll be talking about King of Scars.
King of Scars.
Yes.
I'm almost finished with it and it's very good.
Same. I'm very excited. I'm enjoying it a bit more than I thought I would.
Yeah, same.
Yeah. And which isn't to say I wasn't expecting to like it. I knew I was going to like it.
Yeah.
I'm just liking it more than I thought.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh, it's by Lee Bardugo.
Yeah, is it Lee or Lay?
I think it's Lee.
Lee. Yeah, I don't know. I only see
This
it.
is a problem when everything's written when you just have to read it. I don't say it out loud.
Lee Bardugo.
Please don't correct me.
Yeah. It's Bardugo too.
Will not be taking constructive criticism at this time. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yes.
meanwhile, you can find us on Instagram at In Bed with Books Pod. Also on YouTube, you can see full video versions unedited, as well as Film Fridays and other
Yes.
stories. I've decided to call the segment Film and Other Stories because sometimes we talk about milk. Sometimes
Yeah.
we talk about London.
Shows.
Sometimes we talk about
London.
shows. But we definitely have like films lined up. We just did The Fellowship of the Ring.
Hmm.
That was super fun. Really excited to do Two
Yes.
Towers. But we also did like our like fall favorites, which are just like our favorite Meg Ryan movies, which is coming soon.
Yeah.
You've Got Mail and Harry Met Sally.
You can't have fall without Meg Ryan.
So those are YouTube exclusives. You
Hmm.
can only find them on YouTube. So definitely head over there and subscribe and
Check out our website.
check out our website. Thank you. We
Yes.
created over our break, our hiatus, we made a website. InBedWithBooksPod.com, and you can see like our pictures of us and stuff.
Yeah. Like they are the most recent pictures you're gonna get of me right now.
Yeah. Yeah. What else is on there? I mean, just like
We got a
everywhere you can
blog.
find us. Yes, we have a blog and
Yeah.
we
But
do
that's only on the
reviews.
website.
Only on the website.
Hmm.
Website exclusive
Yes.
is the blog, and we do reviews. I believe Melissa did one on Blue Shadows by Lenore Studsnecker, and then is that how you say it? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. And then I did, which is like an ARC, which is really exciting.
Oh, it was so much fun.
Yeah. And then I just did a thought piece, as you would say, as you would call it, on Made, the Netflix original that just came out, because I watched it and I was like, shit, this is like too real,
Yeah.
too close to home. It's literally called Made, too close to home. So definitely check it out because we do lots of other stuff on the blog. So
We're
yeah.
excited to put out more content for you guys.
Yeah, exactly. Different kinds of content. Keep it interesting. So, but we'll see you next week then.
Yeah.
Happy reading.
Happy reading.
Bye.
Bye.